A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it is a period of wandering a haunted land. In the darkness of the night, two unlikely souls will meet, clash, and bond through the oldest art form, the telling of stories. Do these stories have a deeper meaning? Or do we all just like a good scare out in the Wild West? This episode about Grim Prairie Tales will include discussions about depictions of anti-Black and anti-Native racism, including a lynching scene and the misrepresentation of Native cultures. Please proceed according to your needs and comfort level.
Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marchioni. Joining me today, Ellie McConaughey.
I think you and Jazz have, like, a pact to try to get me to see the most obscure movies. Not even, like, the weirdest, it's the most obscure.
Well, yeah, making us see the weird movies is your job.
Exactly.
Jasmine Garcia.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of the imagination. Next stop, Grim Prairie Tales.
And for our very first time, please welcome Todd.
Hello, and I just want to start by saying, yeah, the pitch for this movie was basically catnip for me. Brad Dourif, James Earl Jones, and anthology horror. I couldn't say no.
Yep. So Ellie forced me to roll a 2 out of our 6 spooky James Earl Jones movies. So we hunted down and watched Grim Prairie Tales, which at the time of this recording is still on YouTube. Hooray for media preservation.
They can't take that down. It would be total. It's like the Lone Gunman being up on YouTube. It's like, if you're not going to make it available by any other legal means, we should just be allowed to put it on YouTube. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Essentially.
So, welcome to officially being a degree 2 James Earl Jones. No, I will not retroactively declare the Bushido blade a degree 2. The less I have to think about the Bushido blade, the better.
From what you said in that episode, this is definitely better. Which, not saying much, but...
When I logged seeing this movie on Letterboxd, I went, like, sorted all the films I've seen by popularity, and went to the end. The only movies the Bushido blade is ahead of in popularity are a couple of movies that I saw at TIFF that, like, haven't been released yet.
Wow. But if I had a nickel for every time I watched a James Earl Jones movie and there was unexpected white people in color face, I'd have 2 nickels. Although, maybe not as unexpected this time. Like, in the fourth story, that guy with the big porn stash, he was definitely painted darker, right?
Probably.
Yeah, especially with that actor's name, I would be shocked if he wasn't.
Bruce M. Fisher as Kolochuz. Yeah, no.
There's a lot happening there.
Like, we were well past the era of the Western where it was considered okay to do it. It never was, but it was considered okay. Like, what were you doing, 90s? What were you doing?
Let's put it this way, and I'm going to say this with all respect to both parties involved. One of the first pictures that come up on Google, he looks like a Wish.com Dennis Franz.
I mean, he was in the Outlaw Josie Wales, so we'll give him that. We were literally just talking about this, about how, like, in my previous episode about Cat Ballou, about how, like, a lot of movies back then, like, if you're gonna engage with it, you just kind of gotta roll with that. But on the other hand, this movie's from the 90s.
It's from 1990, so, like, it's possible that this is technically an 80s film that's only a 90s film on a technicality.
You know what else is from 1990? Me.
Oh, you kids.
Oh.
This movie is also interesting in that it is the feature film debut of Janusz Kaminski, as in Steven Spielberg's cinematographer.
We all had to start somewhere.
It was literally my first note, just like looking at the credits. Janusz Kaminski?
He's actually only one of 2 Academy Award-winning cinematographers working on this film. The other one is Wally Pfister.
Oh, man.
Who works with Christopher fucking Nolan.
Yeah, I don't know if I really If I really have like a plot summary of this movie.
It's James Earl Jones turns up while Brad Dourif is road tripping his way to Jacksonville and basically forces him into spending the night telling stories.
This is a weird fever dream of a Western meets Twilight Zone. It makes no damn sense. Compels me, though.
Can I also say, there were moments when Brad Dourif to me sounded uncannily like Mark Hamill, which is funny on multiple levels, given that one, Mark Hamill replaced Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky in the recent Child's Play
right.
or
Yup.
whatever. And also just, I kind of want to see a version of this movie that is Mark Hamill, because it scratches that itch of the same thing that Darth Vader and Son comics do. I want to imagine Darth Vader telling Luke stories.
I'm torn. On the one hand, I like that kind of meta element, but I also just really love the prissy way Brad Dourif plays this role.
Honestly, like, Brad Dourif's weirdly underrated, just because I guess
definitely.
he's mostly known as Chucky, so people don't recognize that he and his daughter Fiona, who rocks, do both have a surprising amount of range.
People forget
What are you talking about? I best know Brad Dourif as Zoso, the dark one before Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time.
Oh God, that's right.
So
what a waste of Brad Dourif! Jesus Christ!
If we're talking most remembered for me, it's a toss of the coin between the Gemini Killer in Exorcist 3 and Piter DeVries in David Lynch's version of Dune. Also, a reminder, he's an Oscar-nominated actor.
Damn right.
I mean, like, I first got exposed to him even before Lord of the Rings. Or was it before Lord of the Rings? I don't know. The episode was definitely before Lord of the Rings, where he played a serial killer in Luther Lee Boggs in, like, the first really great episode of The X-Files. And it's such a low-key, downbeat episode. It's basically just like Mulder and Scully talk with a serial killer for an hour, and it's great, and he's incredible in it.
The thing that I do love about anthology films of this nature is that you can make them hilarious when you remember that they're being narrated. Like, especially with the second story that gets told. I'm like, Imagine James Earl Jones describing how a woman is having sex with a man and she sucks him up into her vagina.
Reverse birth, baby!
I want the cutaway of both James Earl Jones delivering this and Brad Dourif's face as he is hearing it.
You ever read American Gods, kid? It's a little like that scene.
Oh, no.
Yeah, oh, boy, bummer about that.
Bummer about that one.
Yeah.
Fuck it, Neil. And also just the meta levels they get into, like, where... So, let's briefly run through each of the stories in this little anthology. The first one goes on that trope that so many people now hate of the native burial ground and why you should not fuck with it. To be clear, you should not fuck with native burial grounds. You absolutely should not. And we're not there yet, but we are coming up on Native History Month, and we are past Indigenous Peoples Day, so pay your reparations, check out native-land.ca to find out whose land you are on, and fuck Christopher Columbus as an Italian.
And also fuck Christopher Columbus as someone with like 2% Taino blood.
Also just fuck Christopher Columbus, yeah.
Everyone get on board with it. Special shout out for the guy who intrudes on the burial ground. He is not quite full-blown horror royalty, but he is known in that community. Prior to this, one of his more recognizable famous roles was playing the insane grandpa in Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh!
I am a horror neophyte, so I will take your word for it.
I have not seen Silent Night, Deadly Night yet. I do plan to at some point.
Just YouTube Silent Night, Deadly Night Grandpa. He has one memorable scene where he just traumatizes his kid by explaining how Santa punishes the naughty, and it is a full-blown old man crank delivery.
Oh my god. But yeah, so this guy passes through a burial ground for a group of natives. I think James Earl Jones said they were Cherokee, but none of the...
I believe so, yeah.
None of the visuals that I saw looked Cherokee from my understanding of it. Like, I don't think the Cherokee lived in teepees, but this was the 90s, so I don't expect Hollywood to have actually done any kind of meaningful research.
Insert that Wednesday monologue from Addams Family Values here.
I mean, I don't want to be rude about this, but bringing it back to my podcast, Best Picture winner from 1990, Dances with Wolves.
That's true.
Psychic damage.
God. That was definitely like my least favorite of the segments, to be honest. Although I do find it interesting that after this old man is just ranting at a skeleton for a good 5 minutes, it's like almost a silent film.
There's a core of a good idea there, but the execution simultaneously feels like there's not enough there, and they take too much time with what little there is.
Exactly.
I mean, like, I had this, like, thing in my notes where, like, I didn't really like the first segment. Second segment's, like, meh, pretty good, not great. I really liked the third one, and the fourth one was pretty good.
Yeah, the third one's my favorite. We
Third
have
one's
a
my
lot to talk
favorite.
about there.
We'll get to the third one, but the first one, to stick with that just for a little while, number one, the fact that this white asshole says rest in peace, I'm like, he was trying to, and then you had to come up and start bothering him. You deserve to get buried alive and played on by native children.
Yup.
Larry Clark warned everyone, don't play with dead things.
Mhm.
Not Larry Clark, Bob Clark, not Larry Clark. Do not mix those two up. The results will be bad. Sorry, go on.
And then we cut back to Brad Dourif and James Earl Jones, and Brad Dourif's trying to, like, engage with the story, and James Earl Jones went to the curtains were fucking blue School of Media Literacy.
Yeah, show of hands, who all felt really bad for Brad Dourif because they were Brad Dourif at least once with their family. Hi.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
We're all on a movie podcast. I think that speaks for itself.
Mhm.
I mean, my family at least was like, oh, this just means Sam's smart. Sam is a nerd. Sam loves to read. This is how Sam sees the world. We're good with it.
Man.
we were
Envious.
we were briefing about I Saw the TV Glow at the beginning of the before we started recording. My brother watched that recently, and it took me 15 minutes to explain to him how it was a metaphor for being trans.
Oh.
Huh.
Damn.
I mean, kind of felt it was pretty straightforward, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
Media literacy is dead, along with whatever the hell they made that wig that James Earl Jones is wearing out.
No, seriously, what the fuck?
That
What
is
is the
such
wig?
a nasty thing.
It's Spirit Halloween Thulsa Doom.
Oh.
It's so funny because, like, I feel like we all kind of love Spirit Halloween, but we all have to acknowledge that it is the cheapest place.
I mean, that's part of the charm.
Yeah.
It's just fun to watch Spirit Halloween move into the Bed Bath & Beyond, or the vacant Christmas tree shop, or whatever.
Hey,
Yeah.
the Bed Bath & Beyond at my local complex did not get a Spirit Halloween. The Spirit Halloween moved in across.
Although, Spirit Halloween, seriously, get some better plus-size options, for the love of God.
100%.
They've been
Please.
kind of slacking in general this year, but yes.
Maybe, this is more to my local Spirit Halloween, but, like, do you think you could get some more recent horror stuff that isn't just Terrifier?
Yeah.
I don't even
Yeah.
like Terrifier.
They're trying so hard to make that a thing, and I don't know, personally it's rolling off.
I don't get it. I'm glad people who like it are having fun.
Yeah, and I mean, that new Ice Nine Kills song about it is pretty good, but it didn't make me any more interested in seeing it.
Okay.
Duly noted. But,
I
yeah.
don't know what you're talking about, but I'm slightly scared, so I will take you at your word.
That's probably for the best.
Goodness.
The second segment is like, I think it's the shortest one. It's like 2 scenes.
Yeah.
It's short, and it could have been longer, honestly.
I'd have traded the
absolutely.
length on the first and second, honestly.
Yeah.
I was kind of digging the second one.
Yeah, no, me
Partially
too.
because of the batshit ending.
And I love a at morally dubious at best lady, especially if there are fantasy elements.
God forbid women do anything.
She's just having girl dinner.
And it really feels like they're going to do a little bit more to build that up, and then just all of a sudden it's hit the sheets and down the hole.
Like, you know, like, honestly, I actually looked up, it's like, okay, are there any kind of, like, succubi or anything that it's out and out stated that they do this? And so far I couldn't find anything. Closest I could find was this one creature from the Philippines that's basically a floating head with a bunch of intestines that has a tendency to, you know, the less I say about it, the better.
That thing fucking rules. I don't care what anyone says. I know
it
exactly
does.
what you're
It
talking
does.
about.
It's just a trigger warning for lost baby.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
lot.
no.
Yeah, I mean, we're dancing around the description of what happens. She's pregnant. She meets a guy, and then she reveals that she was lying about being pregnant. They fuck, and then she fucking sucks him into her vagina.
And the cycle begins anew.
She ends the story with a literal food baby.
Oof.
I'm gonna fucking kill you, Todd.
I'm
Honestly,
pretty sure she ate his clothes too.
yeah, but honestly, like I said, that's actually a really neat concept for like a succubus type of demon. Like, okay, let's explore this more. Let's do this in a better story. Let's go.
And I mean, it works in the story. Like, it helps her get his guard down.
For sure, 100%. But like, I feel like this again. They could have used more time. Could have used more development. Like,
Agreed.
if we had really bought into the idea that they had created this connection, it would have made it all the more shocking at the end. It's like, ha!
In a full movie, this could have been a very interesting examination of like the virgin horror dichotomy or something.
Yup.
Ooh.
She straight up mentions that like men leave her alone because they think she's pregnant. Although I will admit, I will confess to one thing I have in my notes. Of the 4 stories, that's the only one that I feel like felt like it was a story being told over a campfire.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so valid.
This is why you don't go wandering off from the campfire.
Like, that first one, you feel like James Earl Jones could have told it in like 5 sentences and just then the film padded out the rest.
Mm-hmm. It's a short film. It's less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked that this was a cinematic release and not like a TV movie.
It feels like it was born to be sent direct to video. It's sitting on a Blockbuster shelf somewhere still.
Or this
No.
was like the early golden age of HBO straight to TV movies.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it got a theatrical release. Apparently, it's a cult hit in the UK.
It does have cult hit written all over it, in my opinion.
There's definite cult appeal.
I will note that the part of the page where it says that, the part of the Wikipedia page where it says that, also says that the director conceived of it as a feminist western. I'm like, so you're just lying to me then? You're just fucking lying to me.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It would only be a feminist western if the entire story were about Jenny the succubus.
Yeah.
I could almost see a case for that third story as well, but the first and fourth just don't really... It doesn't mesh.
The third one's much more about racism.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Spec-
it's kind of hard to tell whether or not this is indicating that Brad Dourif is a racist, because, like, this is the only story in the set that Brad Dourif tells.
Mm-hmm.
And so, should we explain the story rather than dancing around what it actually is?
It is essentially, you've got to be carefully taught the Western.
Yeah.
The premise of the story is some dude out in the West joins in on a lynch mob. Trigger warning for that, I guess. And his daughter sees him and gets really mad. And finally her mother basically says, like, oh, we can convince him. We can tell him not to do this. And her daughter's, like, pissed off about it. And eventually just kind of, like, cracks under it. I don't think that indicates that he's racist. I think that's, like... Honestly, I think that's almost... For a movie this cheap and unknown, that's almost kind of insightful how, like, a lot of people will be like, well, sure, he's a racist murderer, but he's my dad, you know.
Like, there is a
Exactly.
horror there, but it's more about, like, the dangers of just complacence and acceptance.
It's proto-social
I'm
horror.
suggesting that Brad Dourif was a racist because he was kind of engaging with the South as the lost cause, even though he did call it the noble North in his setup. He was talking about how these people are heading out west as the only way to cling on to the dreams and their families, and I'm like, God damn it, you sound so fucking stupid.
Yes, but on the other hand, again, like, he was intentionally trying to do the kind of scary story that gets under your skin, and while, yes, this isn't, like, bleh horror, it is kind of a creeping horror of how easily, unfortunately, a human soul can be corrupted, especially one who clearly had the right idea from the get-go, but she's, like, 8. What's she supposed to do? Well, maybe more like 11. But, like, she's somewhere between 8 and 11. What's she supposed to do?
The description claims that the dad, who is played by William Atherton, is being forced to participate in it. I'm like,
No.
motherfucker, forced where?
The movie really doesn't convey it well. Like, they kind of roll up and he has a little bit of a, oh, guys, really in front of my wife and kid, and that's about it.
It's like he's being forced to go out drinking.
Didn't we already do this last week? Why do we have to do it again this week? That's the energy that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'd like to take a moment to say it's kind of funny to realize 3 out of 4 of us, not even 3 days ago, were just having another podcast discussion about a movie where a child realizes their parents are really complicated, messy people.
Oh yeah.
I will also say part of the problem is, once again, it took us as a society a really long time to like let go of the South as the lost cause South myth. We're still kind of clinging to it, but like
Kind
especially in
of.
movies, uh, there was a movie romanticizing Gone with the Wind like 5 years before this one came out. It wasn't even like an obscure movie. It was a Francis Ford Coppola movie. I like The Outsiders. Leave me alone. But I don't like that part of it. I've never liked Gone with the Wind.
I
I
tried.
thought The Outsiders was the one about the virile, semi-homoerotic biker gang.
It can be both. There's an extended sequence, I believe it's in that movie, where two of the characters get like obsessed with Gone with the Wind, and it starts getting like color graded like it's Gone with the Wind.
Oh, jeez.
I might be wrong about which Coppola movie it is. I know it's a Coppola movie. Let me look.
Okay, I mainly know about The Outsiders because it won big at the Tonys, because they had like, there was rain and a fight on stage and it looked really cool.
Yeah, it is The Outsiders. 83.
But that was definitely my favorite of the sequences, mostly because it actually felt like it was about something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the fourth one was also more about something than the first or the second.
Well, yes. But yeah, the third definitely beat them all by a
I
mile.
think the third one lost me because the ending conclusion feels extremely abrupt. Like, I took down in my notes, yes, shoot your fucking husband. You cannot fix him. This kid gets that you cannot fix him. And then, like, 30 seconds later in screen time, the little girl picks up her hat and she's like, I love you, Daddy.
She doesn't say
And
it like
that's the
that.
end
She
of it.
says it. She says it in a defeated way. That's because that's why that didn't lose me there. Because it's just like, again, she's a little kid. What the
still
fuck's she supposed to
feels
do?
Too quick.
It
I mean, that's
does.
kind of
Yes.
the problem with all four of these stories. Like, there are good ideas in there, but they all just feel like they just got flipped through at a rapid pace.
That's fair.
Which, considering the entire frame of this is like these stories are all being told in the course of a single night, it's like how much of this is just them kind of prevaricating around the fire?
Was it already like past midnight when James Earl Jones rode up with the dead body on his horse? Oh yeah, we forgot about that. James Earl Jones has a dead body on his horse.
One that we find out wasn't even the dude he was looking for.
Another beat that was kind of like, I'm not sure why they included it, safe, or maybe they thought it'd be a nice little gallows humor note to close on, but it doesn't even land that well as a joke.
This is such a half-baked movie.
The start and the end of the movie, it's kind of really weird because James Earl Jones just rides up and basically points at Brad Dourif like, we're friends now. We're gonna talk about why you're going to Jacksonville. I'm gonna look at the picture of your wife. I was half convinced, and I mentioned this in the chat, part of me had a theory that James Earl Jones was some kind of fey trickster or a Nazi or some shit.
It definitely has that vibe.
I was going back and forth, like, either there's something up with James Earl Jones in that regard, or it turns out Dourif's a bounty head he's after.
Yeah, I was expecting that one.
Ooh, that would have been a good twist. This movie's too much of a fever dream to make much sense.
I'll say this much, though. I would have watched just more of them having their almost weird The Lighthouse-style bickering.
Yeah, it was very play. It was very Waiting for Godot.
Two comparisons I would never have thought of, but you're not wrong.
It hit me during their, again, what we're calling the curtains are blue discussion. I'm going like, I'm waiting for them to just start yelling what at one another.
You're fond of me stories, aren't you?
So suddenly it really is Chucky screaming at Darth Vader.
You're fond of me stories, aren't you? I've seen it. I guess we should explain the fourth one now.
Right. Fourth one, a dude kills another dude in a competition to be like the sheriff's right-hand man, and then he starts getting haunted by the ghost of the other dude, and he has like a trippy animated dream sequence over it.
I like the trippy animated dream sequence.
And then the ghost kills him Sweeney Todd style, and it kind of ruled.
There are two things. One, completely unnecessary abuse of a sex worker. Like,
of
that
course.
poor girl did nothing wrong. And also, there's a character in this named Bluey, and I kept being like, it's not fucking Bluey. It's not the sweet little children's mascot.
It is.
I did have to rewind it first, like, hey, did I hear that right?
Oh god. Oh no, indeed.
I think I really like the fourth one, like second to the third one in my opinion, partially because of the trippy animated dream sequence. A lot of movies can be punched up by trippy animated dream sequences. Let's
Oh,
be
absolutely.
Everything needs a trippy animated dream sequence. If you already have a trippy animated dream sequence, add another one.
Yeah.
real. But I also like, much like the third one, it seemed to be the one that got pretty close to having an actual like theme, because they spend the first like 5 minutes of the story explaining how this guy, like, he doesn't see himself as a killer. He sees himself as an artist. He dresses nice. He knows how to treat women. And then, the first time he kills somebody, and I guess the implication is for the first time, like, he gets the guy's blood on his face or whatever, and that, like, completely shakes his conception of himself. Like, that's interesting. That's something.
Just a little Mackers energy up there. Lady Mackers.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it was very Sweeney Todd the way that he ends up getting his comeuppance from the ghost. And that moment unironically ruled. I'm not just saying that because Sweeney Todd's one of my favorite musicals.
Is this a six gun that I see? The handle towards my hand? Is this anything?
You know what? Yes,
I mean,
it is.
It is interesting that third story gets told because Brad Dourif tells the story about the racist, and James Earl Jones was like, "That's fucking awesome, but you know what? I can't let you be the last one to tell a story, so I'm gonna tell a better one." And then he doesn't.
Nice try, Morrison. Nice try.
He's James Earl Jones. Don't pretend the character names matter now, Jazz.
I know.
Honestly, sincerely, I did not catch, like, their names. Their names did not make enough of an impression on me to... There's always, like, whenever I'm taking notes on a movie, and I don't know the movie, like, front to back, like The Matrix or whatever, there's always, like, a shift partway through the notes where, like, to use a separation, which Todd referenced a little bit ago, I switch from calling, the father, the mother, I start, the notes turned into, like, Nader or Seaman, because now I've absorbed their names. And that just didn't happen in my notes for this movie. It's just, like, James Earl Jones and Brad Dourif, like, beginning and end of the movie.
Right. Like, compare that to when we did Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. We were calling, like, Alice and Jordan by their character names, but Pete Davidson was Pete Davidson.
To be fair, Pete Davidson exits that movie pretty early.
But oh, what an exit it is.
What an exit it was.
Oh, boy.
Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Good Halloween movie.
Great Halloween movie.
I almost thought about watching it this weekend.
I'm due for a re-up.
That, I guess, would be the question on the table. Is this a decent Halloween film? Because I read in the Wikipedia that apparently it got, like, advertised as a straight horror film and therefore got slammed for not being scary, which it isn't.
No.
I mean, it was released at the end of September, so, like, I can see them wanting it to have been a Halloween movie, but not only is it not very scary, it's not really very spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't have a lot of atmosphere. It's not... Again, it's baffling that this was shot by Janusz Kaminski, because, like, a lot of the lighting and the shots, they're not atmospheric. They're not creepy. Like, there was one really good shot in the first story where it kind of looks like there's a cloud over the moon that kind of looks like a bird of prey, and that was fucking awesome, but it doesn't resonate much.
Like, I made the Twilight Zone joke at the beginning because the closest equivalent to this is probably lesser Twilight Zone episodes.
It does feel a lot like Twilight Zone the movie.
That last story especially, that feels very much in the vein of a Twilight Zone episode.
But, like, to be completely fair to this movie, we are not watching this movie as it was initially released. I have in my notes, like, hey, y'all got any pixels? Because I did cast it from YouTube to my TV to watch it. But also, like, this is 1990. I'm presuming this is preserved from a VHS. This might have still been pan and scan.
Oh, God, you're right.
Total confession, I had to rewatch part of that first story just to figure out what I was seeing. It was around the time where, spoiler, the old man gets buried alive after he passes out out in the burial ground. But it was like, it's very dark and I'm hearing noises. What's going on here? Let's rewind and try that again.
Honestly, I think it's scarier for it to be very dark and I'm hearing noises and I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I understand why you had to rewind.
Although I will say along those lines, in terms of, like, mildly effective creepy bits, when he wakes up and he is striking the matches and realizing he's buried alive, that was like, okay, this is a pretty good shot.
But, like, if it is pan and scan, which, it was boxy, the footage, we could be missing as much as, like, 40% of the frame. So I don't want to be like too harsh on it. It's not a very well preserved movie. It is not, except for the version that some lovely person put up on YouTube. It is not available in any form. It's not even like rent from Amazon or whatever.
This is the kind of title Shot Factory could give a nice polish to.
You're right. It's not very atmospheric in the form it can be currently watched in.
I'm not even sure who owns it right now. Like, I don't know if Image Entertainment still exists. It's now RLJ Entertainment.
It is a
And
subsidiary
okay,
of AMC.
AMC, like the Interview with the Vampire AMC.
Yep.
Huh.
And BritBox.
So technically, they could possibly upload it to Shudder or AMC Plus if they're still trying to make that a thing. I feel like they're scaling back from it, considering Interview with the Vampire is popping up on HBO Max and Netflix now.
Honestly, like, I would love to see a rebooted version of this with Jacob Anderson in the Morrison role.
Ooh.
So would the idea be like comes across different travelers at their fires each time, or
Yeah.
I like that.
You could make it, maybe cut it down to like 2 stories per episode and then have it be like a 4-episode limited series or something. Because there are bones to this premise. This is an interesting premise. It just, I don't know that, what's his face? Wayne Coe really got the best out of it, which is disappointing, but not really surprising.
Yeah, I kind of know if this is part of why this was his only directorial outing.
Yeah. They did try to make a sequel happen, I found out. So I guess you're not the only one who thought that this does have decent bones. It's just, it was such a flop. Of course, they didn't end up doing it.
I mean, there's a lot of good horror potential in the West, both just as far as like folklore and just as that third story kind of puts it, there's a lot of bodies buried out there that you could dig into, no pun intended.
Oh.
I mean, I think that like some movies and TV shows have like tried to mine the Western for horror. And off the top of my head, there's Bone Tomahawk, which is a great movie. There's also it's not really a scary show, but Winona Earp had a lot of horror elements to it. I don't know. I think if AMC does indeed still own it, assuming it didn't get like sold in some back and forth or whatever, maybe streaming services are consolidating more. I saw Yellow Jackets on Netflix now, so maybe who knows.
I mean, I will also plug Ali Natty's been doing like a series on native horror stories and stuff. Gives me legit chills. And so, like, I'd love to see more native horror stories made by natives, because we really, really, really do need to kill white people mining the native burial ground trope.
Yeah.
Especially you, Stephen King.
Yeah.
Yeah,
King,
I see
knock it
you
off.
still getting projects made out of your work, Stephen. Knock it off.
Yeah, and it's actually awesome that you pointed that out, because there is this anthology book that I read last year. Let me see if I can pull up the title.
Are you recommending Blood Quantum? Because that's a great movie.
Never Whistle at Night. That was it. It's an anthology book of just various native horror stories by natives. Highly recommend that. You could probably make a limited series out of that.
Along these lines, do you need to give a shout out to the writings of Stephen Graham Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like the core emotions that I think you'd want to access if you wanted to make realistic Western horror are like the horror of what happens to a person when they sort of like basically the 2 horrors that the third and the fourth one stories are aiming at. The horror of like racism, because that was very present in a lot of the move into the Wild West. Let's not kid ourselves. And the horror of like losing yourself to violence. Not just like getting killed, but like losing who you are.
Yeah, like getting cut off from quote unquote civilization.
Like,
cannot emphasize the quote unquote enough.
For all those generations that got brought up with the idea of like this noble manifest destiny, it was an era basically carved out in blood. One
of the few recent Westerns to do okay at the box office was the Coen Brothers adaptation of True Grit. And one of the things that I really liked about that is like we have this very solid visualization of what a cowboy, what a gunfighter is in our head, Shane and all that. Whereas like the way the Coen Brothers sort of put it, the main dude isn't so much like a shining hero. He's a barely stable homeless person who just happens to be really good at murdering people. So you hire him to murder people for you.
And then in the end, you're missing an arm and you're full of bitterness, and the end.
Yep.
Ew.
Wait, did you say the Coen brothers told a Shaggy Dog story? Man, that's never happened before.
They never do that. Don't lie, Ellie.
This is just reminding me that I need to get Jane Got a Gun on the list at some point, because that's a Western that has Natalie Portman, Joel Edgerton, and Ewan McGregor all in
Holy
it.
shit.
Wait, when was this made?
Back in like 2015, it had a whole thing where like originally Lynn Ramsey was going to direct and Jude Law was in it, and then Ramsey left the project because some producer was being an ass and Jude Law went with her, so they had to replace both of them in a hurry. And it got brought up because in 2017 Natalie Portman did that whole all-male nominees thing at the Golden Globes, and everyone was like, well, why don't you work with women directors, Natalie Portman? And they were pointing at Jane Got a Gun because Portman was also a producer on that. And I'm like, did you actually research the film before you pulled it up?
You're telling me we could have had a grisly Western acted by... Oh, damn it.
Yep.
A Lynn Ramsey Western, I want it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even like a couple years after this, we have I don't remember the name of the film, the Clint Eastwood whatchamacallit Western, where he's basically like a deranged psychopath.
Be more specific.
No, like he's like explicitly a deranged psychopath. He like paints the town literally red and renames it hell when he's defending it.
Oh.
Is it Unforgiven? I don't think that's it.
Was that High Plains Drifter?
It might have been High Plains Drifter. It's a deeply unpleasant... It is High Plains Drifter. It is a deeply unpleasant film, but it's just like a completely, just like a nightmarish inversion of the Western. I think that there would be a lot of power in that, but I don't know if it would be popular. People don't really like it when Westerns are unpleasant.
Okay, very slight credit to Clint on that one. That was 73.
Okay, so he was ahead of the curve there.
But, I mean, I think it says a lot about this movie that we've been talking for at least like 5 solid minutes about other movies.
There's not much to this. It's very half-baked, but I am fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm. It is very much a makes no damn sense, compels me though movie.
Oh, can we talk about the music?
I love the
You
music, actually.
I have nothing else. The opening theme was pretty solid.
Yeah, sometimes the music is really good. Other times it seems goofy as shit. And at one point in my notes, I think it was during the second story with the succubus, I literally wrote, "Are we suddenly in a prairie rom-com?"
I mean, if it had more time to bake, it could have made it seem like a prairie rom-com, but then all of a sudden...
If the story was longer and had more footage, that'd be a trailer recut.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, anthology films are typically, don't get on my ass about exceptions, typically kind of thin because, you don't really have time to flesh anything out. You gotta, like, get in, get out, and hopefully not murder any children.
They can't all be Creepshow.
I am right now hard-pressed to think about another anthology film I've seen, and I'm not coming up with anything other than 4 Rooms. And I
Which
literally,
sucks.
from that one, only remember the bit with Madonna and her weird sapphic
Lesbian
cult
coven.
resurrecting somebody.
Yeah, that was a weird fucking movie. I like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I think if you took all of the segments of all of the VHS movies and, like, averaged them out, I think they would average out pretty good. They've got some real sinkers in there.
I will say, Trick or Treat's overall pretty solid, and it does a good job of actually blending all the stories together in a satisfactory way.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like Trick or Treat. But again, like, the problem is, you don't really have time for a lot of stuff. It kind of... I honestly think that, like, I mentioned the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is directed by the Coen brothers, and they are extremely fond of unpleasant stories with no point. And that's not a slam. I love the Coen brothers.
Mhm.
So I think that approach, being willing to just have a segment or two where, like, what's the point? Fuck you, that's the point, is going to serve you pretty well.
The Liam Neeson story from that one comes to mind.
Exactly. That is exactly the one I was thinking of. And that one actually had a pretty decent point, but it was also like, fuck you, go home.
Which, yeah, I mean, that was more or less James Earl Jones' character's take on this. Like, it is kind of neat how basically all their discussions, when other than the bickering, is really about them discussing the nature of storytelling, and obviously that is my bag. So, like, shit like that, plus weird succubus lady, plus the proto-social horror.
I wish I could be on your side with the talking about the nature of storytelling thing, Jazz, but the second you said it, all I could think about was the fucking Game of Thrones series finale.
That does
okay.
tend to leave a bad taste in people's mouths.
And who
Fair.
has a better story than Bran the Broke? Are we really doing
Oh,
this?
fuck you!
But most of my story was cut out of the show. Doesn't matter.
God.
Yeah. Getting back to Grim Prairie Tales and the bickering of it all, I think my favorite exchange between the two of them was Brad Dourif going, "You gotta tell us another story," when James Earl Jones asks for more coffee and he says, "I gotta do nothing. Give me another cup."
I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and state my complaint right from the start. What the fuck does this have to do with Grimm's Fairy Tales? Why'd you
Yeah.
call it that?
That was more or less my thought. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, is this something that's eligible for my podcast? And no.
Nope,
The title almost feels like an afterthought.
it
Yeah.
does.
I
I mean,
would
it's a
love
striking
to see.
title.
I
I
mean,
would
it's
love-
not like they put a double M on there.
I mean, yeah, but still.
The implication is obviously there. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I might have to say about this movie. I desperately don't want to talk about Twilight Zone the movie, so
I mean, you keep bringing it
I-
up.
As far as like minor beats, I do kind of love that after Dorff tells a story, James Earl Jones' response is basically, "That story was really nasty. I loved it."
Yep, and sometimes that's what it's like to be a horror fan.
yeah.
Morrison, you are a weird fucking guy.
I mean, like,
Which only reaffirms my theory that you are, in fact, a fey trickster.
I think that like the core of horror, whatever people who don't like horror think about it, I'm not like going to see a horror movie excited to see someone get their skin pulled off. Like I'm there seeking out specific emotions,
Mm-hmm.
which are usually pretty unpleasant emotions, but they're what I want out of the movie.
And again, I can't believe I'm quoting Wes Craven in 2 recordings in a row now, but horror does not create fear, it releases it. It is an out.
I mean, to Ellie's particular comparison, one particular warding beat in a horror film is it's the end of Hellraiser when Frank basically gets pulled apart just as kind of like, after all the horrible things you've done to people over the course of this movie, you are reaping what you've sown.
Nope.
I mean, the 1990 was sort of an odd. There's going to be moments where horror, because horror is cheap, often not critically well regarded, and made very quickly. Horror is more than any other genre very prone to trend chasing.
Yeah.
Like how right now we're having all these horror movies about pregnancy. Gee,
Yes.
I wonder what might have happened in the last 2 years to make everybody kind of freaked out by it.
Right, there is that angle.
Yeah.
But that like you can use that to create a certain amount of depth by appealing to certain of the moment concerns, like how the Fly remake was about AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means that you can sort of like cut horror, take the horror movies of a decade, cut them in half, and basically see the rings of what people are trend chasing. First there was the Ring, and then we had a bunch of J horror remakes, and then Saw came out, and everyone's doing torture porn, and then Paranormal Activity hit, and now Ghosts are back. And so like 1990 was kind of like a moment where horror was kind of breaking down, like where no one knew what the next trend was going to be before Scream came out and really like put its boot on the neck of the slasher film. And so I think that was sort of a moment where people were trying to figure out what the next trend was going to be. And I think someone at least thought, hey, maybe like Western horrors. Except they forgot that nowadays Westerns are actually really expensive to make.
There's a difference because there were a couple of other. Yeah, remember like the '90s. There was a couple of kind of weird sub-shoots like that.
Well, I've exhausted every last intellectual thought I can have on this movie, I think.
Looking back over my notes, apparently this fucking sex worker in the 4th story had sex with her bloomers on, because I'm assuming this had like a PG-13 rating, so they couldn't show her ass, especially if she had menstrual blood coming down her legs.
She is way more blasé about her period blood getting everywhere than any cis woman I've ever slept with.
I mean, speaking as somebody who has gone through periods for a very long time now, nowadays when my period blood gets on something, it's more like an, oh god, not again.
It's like
and just, let's get to it, let's strip the bed, let's get the ammonia out, let's do this bullshit.
So, Sam, per your speculation, I checked IMDb. Apparently, it was an R.
Huh.
Really? Huh.
And not a single fuck.
And
Boo!
somewhat uncomfortably, among their first pictures is a production still of the lynching scene.
Oh god, that's like going on IMDb and seeing the blackface scene of the Bushido blade.
I will say, I don't know why the actress who plays the succubus, at least in her first shot, I don't know why. My first note on her was she looks like the Maya Hawke we got on Wish.
Oh god, you're not wrong!
Am I crazy? Am I crazy about that?
No!
I went and looked up the actress. Apparently she was in an episode of The X-Files, but that's not exactly unique.
Honestly, I have not seen enough of Maya Hawke to properly answer that because I don't watch Stranger Things. I think at this point the only thing I've seen Maya Hawke in was Do Revenge.
Same here.
We're really stretching this out, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no nice way to say it. The movie only gives us so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but at this point we're stretching it so thin that I think it's now inevitable we have to ask, is the Force with it?
I'm gonna have to say no. Not because I didn't like it, and that's a soft no, because it's 82 minutes. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with that? You could watch Pretty Pete Mama on Withdrawn. I liked two of the segments a fair amount. The other two just really didn't interest me very much. So you could probably find a better 82-minute movie to watch. Sorry.
Soft, yes. It is a half-baked fever dream of a movie, but I kind of had a lot of fun with it.
Long answer yes with an if, short answer no with a but. I'm actually going to vote a soft yes on this just because I'll admit, as anthology movies go, it's one of the weaker ones I've seen, but James Earl Jones and Brad Dourif do win this just enough goodwill for me.
Okay, but Todd, as a longtime guest on this podcast, I need to show you the ropes. If you're like midway, the answer is only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Well, the thing is, I'm going to balance the Force by giving it a no on my end, so 2 yeses, 2 nos. There are no
Hooray!
Sith here.
As for the record, Ellie, when that question first came up, I almost answered, I'm just going to call this Force sensitive, but I found out apparently, yeah, that's kind of discouraged here, so...
Yeah, I feel like I go for only a Sith deals in absolutes too often.
Yeah, it's especially you and Addie who do it, and I'm like, okay, I understand that, the two of you are all about the transcending of binaries, but come on, work with me here.
And I will admit, I'm putting this on a low grade curve of these days. If I don't come out of the movie feeling pissed off that I watched it, I'm willing to say, okay, I guess we can just make this a soft yes.
I will say that part of the problem, I don't know if this is Addie's problem, but this is my problem. I don't know if I can have an opinion in less than 2,500 words anymore, so...
Oof.
Well, we just did a podcast. I'm sure you said more than 2,500 words during this.
There we go.
Who has Pluggables?
I am, as always, Ellie, the host of The Biggest Night in Podcasting, where we talk about Oscar-winning films. We got some good stuff coming up. Jasmine is on a couple of episodes with me.
Woohoo!
Other than that, you can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Medium at LSR42, and on Tumblr at Football and Tuxedos.
I am currently in a bit of a lull right now as far as Pluggables. I had a folk horror primer program I was putting together earlier in the month, but now that's out of the gate, so I got to start figuring out the next thing I'm going to be digging into. So hopefully next time I'm on, I will have something worth plugging.
And I am the host of In Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new, and that is why I was deeply disappointed this wasn't actually a Western horror Grim Fairy Tale anthology. So,
I mean,
if
technically you could do that yourself. IOR episode?
I'm honestly tempted now.
All right.
I will write that down. Thank you, Sam. So you can find us wherever pods are cast. We are still in the midst of Monster Month 2, The Dead Are Rising. And you can also find me at Faye Riviera on all the socials.
As for me, I will ask that you keep the spirit of Star Wars alive by supporting artists through the Entertainment Community Fund and by taking action to support anti-imperial and anti-colonial movements across the globe, partially by using links provided below and by taking action in your community. And you can find me on the wider internet as La Femme Fictionale, including on YouTube, Twitter, and Tumblr, where you can also find the blog for this show. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls' one-beat synth-pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period the band.
Before I roll this nice little chance cube, Ellie has used her privilege as a Knight of the Order of 6 Degrees of Star Wars for appearing on 10 episodes. Ellie got one chance to force the chance cube to roll a number. Ellie picked 2 for this. Jazz, you still have your chance to mind trick me into a number. Do you want to use that now, or do you want to wait?
The fact that you phrased it like that is very funny. And you know what, though? I think I kind of do. So...
Pick a number.
fuck it, let's do a 2.
Another 2, which means next up, kind of wish we'd done this sooner now, then we could have been trend chasing. It's gonna be Birds of Prey, motherfucker, the best Harley Quinn movie!
Let's go!
Hell yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
What are you saying that it's better than Joker?
You couldn't even get through that sentence.
I'm impressed you held out as long in that sentence as you did.
Yeah.
We will see you all for Birds of Prey. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay beautiful, and may the Force be with you.